The rain had just started falling when Chike stopped walking. He stood in the middle of the busy Lego street, drenched, his shirt clinging to his chest, the city rushing past him as if he didn't exist. Cars honked. Danfo buses swerved. Hawkers shouted prices for gala and pure water. But to him, the world was silent. He had nothing left. Not a naira in his pocket. Not a shred of dignity in his chest. And most of all, no Tonia. He pressed his palm against the cracked wall of a closed shop and tried to steady his breath. His mind spun with fragments of her voice, echoing over and over again.
Chike, I'm tired.
Tired of this life. Tired of suffering. The words replayed like a curse. The rain grew heavier. People rushed for shelter. But Chike didn't move. He let the water wash over him, mingling with the tears that refused to fall. He had cried enough already. Just 2 weeks earlier, he had come home from a failed interview, his shirt soaked in sweat, his heart heavy with defeat. He had found Tonia sitting on the edge of their narrow bed, her arms folded, her eyes sharper than he had ever seen them. "I can't keep doing this," she said coldly. "I can't keep living like this." He dropped his bag and knelt before her. "Tonia, please, I'm trying. Things will change." "When?" she snapped. "When will they change, Chike?"
I'm Fetty.
"My friends are marrying men who can provide, who drive cars, who live in apartments with light and water. And me? I'm stuck here with you." Her words pierced him. He tried to reach for her hand, but she pulled away. "I'm done." That night, she packed her clothes into a small suitcase. The rain was falling then too. He followed her out into the street, begging, his voice breaking, but she never turned back. A black SUV waited for her at the corner. She climbed in. The man behind the wheel leaned across to kiss her cheek. And just like that, she was gone. The neighbors had seen everything. By morning, gossip spread like wildfire. "Ah, so Tonia has left him? Serves him right. Love without money is nothing. Who told him women eat love?" Chike stayed indoors for days, ashamed to face the world. But hunger eventually drove him outside. And now here he was again, in the rain, empty, lost. A Danfo screeched to a halt beside him, splashing water across his trousers. The conductor leaned out and yelled, "Ashadi, Ashadi straight. Enter with your change." Chike didn't move. His legs trembled. He pressed his back against the wall, sliding down slowly until he was sitting in the mud. The headlights of passing cars washed over his face, showing the emptiness in his eyes. He wondered if life was worth living. Then something happened. Across the road, an old man staggered. He clutched his chest and fell to the ground. The crowd moved back, muttering. Some shook their heads and walked away. No one wanted to be involved. But Chike, broken as he was, found his body moving before his mind could think. He dashed across the wet road, kneeling beside the man. Sir, can you hear me?" The man's eyes fluttered. His lips trembled, no sound coming out. Chike shouted for help, but people only stared. He waved frantically at an approaching Kiki. "Please stop. Please help me carry him." Together with the reluctant driver, he lifted the man into the tricycle. Rain pounded the roof as they sped toward the nearest clinic. Inside, Chike refused to leave the man's side. He gave the nurse the last crumpled notes in his pocket. "Please, treat him. Don't worry about the rest. I'll find a way." Hours later, the man was stable. Chike sat on the plastic chair in the corridor, soaked, shivering, but strangely calm. He had nothing. He had lost everything. Yet, in that moment, helping the stranger had given him something he hadn't felt in weeks: purpose. When the old man regained consciousness, his voice was weak but steady. "Young man," he whispered, "you saved my life." Chike shook his head. "I only did what anyone should do." The man smiled faintly. "Not everyone would." "What is your name?" "Chike Adebayo." The man closed his eyes, nodding. "You will not be forgotten, Chike Adebayo. Come and see me tomorrow." Chike thought it was nothing more than a dying man's gratitude. But the next day, Curiosity pulled him to the address scribbled on a scrap of paper by the nurse. When he arrived, his jaw nearly dropped. The gates were massive, guarded, painted in gleaming black. The compound stretched wide, with manicured lawns and luxury cars parked in neat rows. This was wealth beyond imagination. The security man frowned when he saw Chike's faded shirt and worn shoes. But when Chike mentioned his name, the guard's expression changed. "Ah, Oga say if you come, make we allow you enter." Inside the palatial living room, the old man from the night before sat upright, his chest wrapped in bandages, but his eyes sharp. He was dressed in a simple robe, but the aura of power around him was undeniable. "I am Chief Okorie," he said. His voice filled the room despite its softness. "And you are the young man who refused to abandon me on the street." Chike lowered his gaze. "Sir, anyone would have." "No," Chief interrupted. "Not anyone. Lagos has taught people to mind their own business. But you risked your life and your last naira for me. That kind of loyalty is rare." Chike swallowed hard, unsure what to say. "What do you do?" Chief asked. Chike hesitated. The truth was bitter. "Nothing, sir. At least, nothing stable." Chief studied him in silence. Then he nodded slowly. "Come and see me tomorrow. I think your life is about to change." That was how it began. First, it was small. Errands, carrying files, delivering letters. Chike worked like his life depended on it because it did. He was the first to arrive, the last to leave. When others cut corners, he went the extra mile. When others complained, he remained silent, determined. "Who is this young man?" managers whispered. Chief Okorie only smiled. He had seen hunger like this before, the hunger that builds empires. Months became years. Chike learned fast. He stayed late in the office, studying documents others ignored. He volunteered for tasks no one wanted. Slowly, his persistence carved a space for him. Then, the first breakthrough came. A project no one wanted. Risky. Complicated. Everyone avoided it. Chike stepped forward. He worked day and night, pulling a miracle out of chaos. The project not only succeeded, it surpassed all expectations. His name began to spread. Chike Adebayo. That young man is different. He was promoted. His income doubled, then tripled. He invested wisely, learned quickly. By his mid-30s, he was no longer an errand boy. He was a shareholder. The boy who once sat in the rain, abandoned, humiliated, was now a man dining with governors and CEOs. Yet through it all, he remained humble. He remembered the cracked ceiling in his old room, the plate of beans Tonia once pushed away, the night she left him in the rain. And though he was surrounded by luxury now, part of him still felt the sting of that betrayal. Success did not come to Chike overnight. It came like dawn, slowly, softly, until the light was so bright he could hardly believe it had once been dark. He bought his first car at 34, a modest Toyota Corolla, nothing flashy, but to him it was a crown. He drove through Lagos traffic with pride, remembering the days when he begged conductors to let him ride on credit. By 36, he moved into his own apartment. Not a mansion, not yet, but a clean, well-lit place in Lekki with running water, constant light, and a balcony that looked out over the restless city. At 37, he was no longer an employee who took instructions. He was the man giving them. His name appeared in newspapers, linked to companies, projects, and ventures. He shook hands with men whose photographs decorated the covers of Forbes Africa. But even as his wardrobe changed from faded shirts to tailored suits, even as he sat in meetings where billions of naira were discussed, he never forgot. He never forgot the sting of hunger, the shame of failure, the night Tonia's suitcase wheels dragged across wet asphalt as she left him behind. That memory was his fuel. Yet despite his rise, there was an emptiness. Nights ended with him staring at his ceiling, alone. Friends surrounded him, yes. Men who laughed loud and clapped his back in parties. But true companionship? He didn't have it. He didn't want another Tonia. He wanted something real. And then he met Amara. It was at a charity gala organized by Chief Okorie's foundation. Chike was now a keynote speaker, invited to share his story of resilience. The hall glittered with chandeliers, gowns shimmered, tuxedos lined the crowd. But in that sea of extravagance, his eyes kept returning to one woman. She wasn't the most glamorous in the room. Her dress was simple, elegant. She didn't wear heavy jewelry, but her smile, gentle, unforced, lit the space around her. After his speech, where he spoke of struggle and perseverance, she approached him. "That was moving," she said softly. Her voice was calm, confident. "Thank you," Chike replied, still catching his breath from the spotlight. "I was only sharing the truth." "I'm Amara," she said, extending her hand. "I teach at a community school in Surulere." Chike blinked. Of all the things he expected, doctor, lawyer, entrepreneur, schoolteacher wasn't one. A teacher. She laughed lightly. "Yes, children are my world. Their laughter keeps me going." He smiled, intrigued. Most women he met at events like this spoke only of fashion, travel, or connections. But Amara, she spoke of children, of joy, of purpose. Over the following weeks, they kept in touch. Coffee turned into dinners, dinners into long walks, and with every conversation, Chike felt a weight lift from his heart. One evening, he tried to impress her with stories of his travels, London, Dubai, New York. But she only smiled and said, "I'm more interested in the kind of man you are when no one is watching than in the stamps on your passport." That single sentence sank deep. For the first time in years, he felt truly seen. Not for his money, not for his status, but for his heart. And slowly, carefully, he let himself fall. The love between them was different, gentle, steady. When Amara visited his apartment, she didn't care for the expensive furniture. She admired the books on his shelf. When he drove her in his sleek SUV, she rolled down the window to greet children selling water bottles on the roadside. Chike found himself changing, not into someone else, but into the man he always wanted to be. One night, as they sat together on his balcony, Amara turned to him. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. "Anything. You carry pain in your eyes. Even when you laugh, it doesn't leave." Chike's chest tightened. He thought of Tonia, of betrayal, of humiliation. "Yes," he admitted quietly. "I've carried it for years." Amara reached for his hand. "Then let me help you carry it." In that moment, something inside him healed. But life has a way of testing peace. It happened on a Friday evening. Chike was leaving his office, the night breeze heavy with the scent of rain. His driver was pulling up when he heard it. A voice, faint but familiar. "Chike!" He froze. Slowly he turned. There she was, Tonia. But not the Tonia of old. The radiant, ambitious woman who once laughed at his dreams. No, this Tonia was different. Her eyes were hollow. Her skin had lost its glow. She was thinner, her once flawless makeup smudged. "Chike!" she whispered again, stepping closer. "Please, don't walk away." Memories collided in his mind. The night she left, the SUV waiting, the cruel laughter with her new man. And now here she was. "What are you doing here?" His voice was steady, colder than he intended. Tonia's lips trembled. I made a mistake. The man I chose, he left me. Everything I thought I had, it's gone. Please, Chike, give me another chance." Chike felt eyes on him. His staff stood near the entrance, pretending not to watch but failing. His guards lingered, curious. This was a theater of irony. Tonia reached for his arm, gripping it desperately. "Remember our love. Remember the years we shared. I was foolish. Please, take me back." For a moment, Chike's chest tightened. He remembered. He remembered the laughter, the kisses, the plans they once made. But he also remembered the betrayal, the humiliation, the night he sat in the rain, alone. He pulled his arm free. "Tonia," he said, his voice firm. "Love doesn't abandon you when you're at your lowest. You left me when I had nothing, but someone else saw me when I was still climbing. I cannot give you what belongs to her." Tonia's knees buckled. She fell to the ground, sobbing, clutching at the hem of his trousers. "Please, Chike, don't do this to me." but he shook his head. I didn't do this to you. You did it to yourself. Choices have consequences. And with that, he turned and walked to his car. The last thing he saw was Tonia's face, streaked with tears, her hands reaching out like a drowning woman. But he did not look back. That night, Chike told Amara everything. She listened quietly, her fingers laced with his. When he finished, she kissed his hand gently. She's your past, Amara whispered. I am your future. Don't ever confuse the two. Chike closed his eyes, gratitude welling inside him. He had been given a second chance, not with Tonia but with life itself. And he would not waste it. The days that followed Tonia's return were restless ones. Chike tried to push her from his mind, but her voice, broken, desperate, lingered like an echo in his ears. Yet every time doubt whispered, Amara's steady presence silenced it. She was his anchor, his reminder that the past had no claim on him anymore. Life moved quickly now. Chike's company had just landed a massive government contract, one that placed him among the nation's most influential business leaders. Newspapers printed his photograph. Magazines listed him among the new titans of Lagos. Invitations poured in from governors, ministers, and foreign investors. But with success came pressure. Nights stretched long. Meetings bled into mornings. There were times he nearly lost himself in the whirlwind. Amara, however, never let him drown. She brought him meals when he forgot to eat, laughter when stress stiffened his shoulders, prayer when fear threatened his confidence. And in return, Chike gave her the one thing he had withheld from the world: his heart, whole and unguarded. One Saturday evening, he surprised her with a visit to her small school in Surulere. The walls were cracked, the desks worn, but the children's voices filled the compound with joy. Amara moved among them like sunlight, guiding, encouraging, smiling. Chike stood watching, something tightening in his chest. This was what he had always longed for: love not rooted in wealth, but in kindness. Later, as they walked hand in hand, Amara turned to him. Chike, all this success you've built, all this influence, you could change lives, not just yours. Her words lingered, and for the first time, Chike began to see his wealth not just as victory over poverty, but as a tool for transformation. Meanwhile, Tonia was unraveling. Her new man, the one she had abandoned Chike for, had drained her of her savings and discarded her like old cloth. The friends who once envied her upgrade now avoided her calls. She moved from one small apartment to another, her once polished lifestyle reduced to scraps. She watched Chike's face on magazine covers and television screens, envy burning her like fire. The man she had mocked for serving her beans was now celebrated as one of Lagos' brightest lights. And she was forgotten. When she appeared at his office that Friday night, it had been her last desperate gamble. She had hoped that the man she once loved would take her back, forgive her, restore her. But his rejection had shattered her final illusion. And now she lived with nothing but regret. Chike's star only rose higher. Months later, he was invited to deliver a keynote speech at a high society gala in Victoria Island. The event was broadcast live. The hall sparkled with chandeliers, the air thick with perfume and ambition. Dignitaries filled the tables: bank executives, oil magnates, foreign diplomats. Chike entered the hall with Amara on his arm. Cameras flashed, heads turned, whispers rippled through the crowd. He looked every inch the man destiny had chosen. Tailored suit, calm confidence, a woman beside him whose grace silenced the room. When his name was announced, applause thundered. He rose to the podium, the lights bright on his face. For a moment, he looked out over the sea of expectant eyes. And suddenly, he wasn't standing in a glittering hall. He was back in that cramped room, staring at a cracked ceiling, listening to Tonia's voice as she walked away. He cleared his throat. "My story is not one of sudden success," he began. His voice carried strength, steady and deep. "It is the story of failure, of humiliation, of being left behind. But it is also the story of how pain can be fuel, how betrayal can become fire, how heartbreak can refine a man into something stronger. The hall was silent. I stand here today, not as someone who never fell, but as someone who refused to stay down. And if there is one thing my journey has taught me, it is this: true love, true loyalty, true character. These are the treasures more valuable than any wealth. The applause shook the room. Cameras flashed brighter. Amara smiled, her eyes shimmering with quiet pride. And somewhere, in the shadows of the hall, Tonia watched. She had managed to sneak in, blending into the crowd. She saw him now. The man she had abandoned, standing tall, honored, untouchable. She saw Amara beside him, radiant, cherished, adored. Tears blurred her vision. Regret crushed her chest. The life she had thrown away stood before her, more magnificent than she ever imagined. And she was invisible. No one recognized her. No one cared. She was a ghost haunting the triumph of the man she betrayed. That night, as the gala ended, Chike and Amara walked out hand in hand, the night air cool and filled with promise. Photographers snapped their pictures. Journalists called out questions. Admirers reached for handshakes. But beneath the noise, Chike's heart was quiet. He had come full circle. From betrayal to breakthrough. From humiliation to honor. From loneliness to love. And as he looked at Amara, he knew. His story was not about revenge. It was about redemption.